From VTV Channel 6 Studios in downtown Vernal, this is Local Point with your host, Chris Piner.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Local Point once again, brought to you by Strata Networks. I'm your host, David Gale, today, in for Chris Piner. On today's show, we welcome to the studio Lieutenant Chug and Sergeant Manning from Utah Highway Patrol and Vernal City Police. They're here to talk to us about public safety. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
So, when you talk about public safety here in our area, especially as it seems like we just keep growing and growing and growing, what are the major public safety concerns when it comes to law enforcement?
Well, growth is the big factor. Obviously, when you add more people, you add more vehicles. They don't ride bicycles around, so we've got lots of extra traffic on the road, and that combined with the increase in the energy production around adds commercial vehicles on top of that. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at a significant increase in traffic over the last several years, which causes a lot of public safety concerns.
Yeah, and in this time of year, especially as we suddenly all the snow is going away, and here comes the cones out on the streets. How does that affect mainly maybe in the city? Well, of course on the highway as well. But let's go to the city. How does that affect the traffic and public safety?
Well, it's a big problem, especially like when Main Street, a couple of weeks ago, they had everything down to one lane going eastbound or westbound, and it just jumbles everything up, makes all the side streets full of more people, and it just clutters everything up.
Yeah, and from a driver's perspective, or I guess maybe from your perspective of the drivers, what are the things that people should be more aware of that maybe they're not in that kind of a situation?
Well, they're trying to get through, and they're used to the highway, so stop signs are something that they fail to stop at.
Really?
Yes.
They just don't even see them.
Well, they may see them, but even they do a California stop or whatever, they're just in a hurry, and then we run into pedestrian problems, which luckily we haven't had any recently, but
good. Yeah, it definitely does happen. So out on the highway, how does the construction out there work?
It's the same thing. Sergeant Manning brings up a great point. We tend not to allow ourselves enough travel time. We get behind, the kids run late, we have little things to do, so we don't get out of the door quick enough to give us the time we need. So when we get in a rush, we tend to make a lot more mistakes. We don't stop at the stop signs. We're not looking as carefully as we should. We're traveling at speeds beyond our vehicle's capability, so bad things happen.
Yeah. Now, when I'm driving down the road and I see a police officer of any kind of law enforcement vehicle, there's a couple of things that always happen. I immediately take my foot off of the gas, and then I look down to see how fast am I really going right now. And I got to admit, I actually try to be pretty good about that in general. But from you guys' point of view, we'll start back with you, Lieutenant Chug. What are you looking? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that a law enforcement officer does. You're answering calls, you're doing all kinds of things. But when you're just driving down the road, what are the things that you're looking for?
We try to look for the things that impact vehicle safety. Mostly things like lane travel, or people maintaining their lane, then speed, following distance, are they signaling their lane changes, the things that we know directly impact crash rates and vehicle safety.
Okay, and in town?
Same kind of things, equipment violations, which are a concern, signals that aren't working, whether they've actually flipped them on and they just didn't work or what have you. But.
And how about speed? Because again, to me that's always is how fast am I going? I know that your vehicles are equipped with radar devices. Are those things like always on? Is it? I mean, obviously if somebody's going super fast, that's a safety concern, but not that I want to try to give people a reason to go faster, but how does that play into all of the other possible issues that are out there? How much does speed, one of those things that is really important for you guys compared to checking out everything else?
Speed's actually probably one of the biggest issues we deal with because of the physics involved and being able to get stopped, the performance capabilities of the vehicle, all those environmental factors that are sometimes out there, weather related, those kind of things. Not to mention the physiological capabilities of human. When we're going faster, our eyes and brains can only process so much information. So actually, as speed increases, people develop a tunnel vision. And so without training yourself, without the experience, then that makes things very difficult.
Yeah. And I noticed we've got a lot of animals that tend to pop out all of a sudden out of nowhere. And in my experience, I'll be driving down the road, and even if I'm going the speed limit, there'll be a deer or something, and I literally cannot see it. And my wife will be like, "There's a deer, there's a deer, there's a deer!" Slow down. And then suddenly my brain can see it. I think you're right though, that crazy phenomenon where you just see what's right in front of you. Sergeant Manning, in town, what would law enforcement most like to? What messages would you most like drivers to get from if they had a one-on-one experience from you like this?
Pay attention to your surroundings. I mean, before you go making that lane change, make sure, check your blind spots, because that's a big thing. People getting cut off, and then we get into all the squabbles and those kind of things. So make sure you're checking all those things. Make sure you're watching out for the pedestrians. You come to a stoplight, check and make sure before you proceed through that green light, especially this time of year with all the kids and bicycles and whatnot, make sure something isn't coming across there. Yeah, a lot more pedestrians out when it gets a little bit warmer. And then we've got a lot of areas within our city and the county where there aren't any sidewalks. And so how about on the highway? What would you like people to do out there?
Similar things, especially with construction workers out there. There's nothing wrong with slowing down and letting them have a little extra space if you have a lane available.
Okay, well great. Now you guys are here to talk about more than just general public safety. We've got something very specific to talk about, but first we're going to go to break. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsor, Strata Networks, and we'll talk a little bit more about a new law that's come into effect. We'll be right back.
Strata Networks is proud to bring the first true 4G LTE network to the Uinta Basin. 4G LTE is the most powerful mobile broadband available anywhere in the world. With speeds up to 10 times faster than 3G, you can stay connected like never before. Video chat without delay, stream HD TV or movies in an instant, and download or upload in seconds. For details, visit us in Roosevelt or Vernal or call 622-5007. More speed, more power. 4G LTE, only from Strata Networks.
Welcome back here to Local Point. Once again, Lieutenant Chug and Sergeant Manning are here with me, and we're discussing public safety, specifically in the Uinta Basin. But now we're going to move a little bit wider and talk about the state in general, because there are some new laws coming into effect, specifically when it applies to electronic devices within the vehicle. So, Lieutenant Chug, what are these laws?
Well, we're calling it a new law in the sense that it's been rearranged a little, but it's actually not so new. We've had a law about using electronic devices and distracted driving for some time. This one just adds a little bit of clarification and a little more definition, and quite frankly, it makes it a little easier to enforce for police officers.
Okay, so what was the previous law, and how has it changed?
The previous law started with just being able not to text. Then the most current version was that you couldn't use an app or some things like that. Now it's a lot more specific.
So we're talking about mobile phones in the vehicle, and the law was you couldn't text, and now what can you and can you not do for sure?
Now it actually expands what the definition of a mobile device is to include not only cell phones, but any texting device, any laptop, computer, and also it includes tablet devices as well. Anything that's removable from a vehicle, a GPS device would be included. Those are all included in this law now.
Have you ever come across people using laptops in their cars?
Yesterday.
You're kidding?
No.
Really? Just have it flipped open and just going to town?
Yep. I stopped one yesterday.
I came up to a guy 2 days ago that was using a tablet. So I mean, it's pull up at the stoplight, he slides the thing down to where I wasn't doing that as I'm driving along.
Wow. Okay, man, that's crazy, because we hear stories about how you can get so distracted so easily. In fact, and I could be wrong about this, you guys correct me, but that it's worse than having a DUI, that you could possibly be more distracted trying to text on something than if you were completely intoxicated.
It's definitely comparable.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, and so people who may not even drink think that this isn't quite such a bad idea, but it only takes that long for something to happen. And I don't necessarily want to get into too gruesome details or bad things that happen, but what are the typical things that go wrong? Why wouldn't we be okay that I'm just taking 2 seconds to, respond to a text?
Well, we had, was it 2 years ago, we had an accident here in town where that was exactly what was happening, and we had a young man that was killed.
Wow.
A pedestrian walking along, and the guy's texting and hits him. And
wow. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty brutal. So from you guys' end, is it simply just you happen to see somebody, this action in a car, at least to me, and I'm not, you guys see cars all day long and people, maybe you just can tune in on that kind of thing, but it seems a little difficult maybe to recognize that happening. Is it at all, or is it pretty obvious?
It's obvious, I think.
It's very obvious. You'll see the head go up and down just like this. So they're trying to keep their eyes on the road, and then they're trying to do whatever they're doing on their device, and you'll see their head like they're nodding yes. It's very apparent.
Wow. So when does the rearrangement of law, so to speak, when does it go into effect?
May 13th.
May 13th. Mm-hmm. And so again, and maybe from your paper here, you can tell me exactly what the change covers, so I'm not missing anything here.
Once this new law goes into effect on May 13th, you can no longer dial on your phone.
Okay.
You can no longer read, write, or send any written communication from the device, which includes text messages, instant messaging, and emails. You may not access the internet. You can't record video while you're driving, and nothing that you can use to enter data.
Okay, so you can't. Technically, it's not saying you can't talk on the phone. You just can't enter a number to dial out.
Correct.
So there are some exceptions to what you can and can't do. What are those exceptions then?
The exceptions are a GPS device and answering a phone call with hands-free.
Okay.
If you have to actually pick up the phone and touch it to be able to answer it, that's illegal.
Okay. But if I want to make a phone call and my truck has some sort of Bluetooth thing where I can say, hey, I want to call this person, and I don't actually have to touch anything except for talking to my truck, that's still okay, and you can still have conversations.
Yes.
What about, I thought I read somewhere in there something about stoplights or maybe stop signs. Is there a difference between the car is moving and when it's stationary?
There is. The law applies only to a vehicle in motion. When, quite honestly though, if you're stopped at a stoplight, the last thing we want you to do is be looking down at your phone. There's a better time to do that and a safer time to do that.
Yeah.
So technically it's not illegal if you're at a stoplight to be manipulating your wireless device, but we don't encourage it.
What happens if my phone goes off and then I forget about the law and I'm like, oh, who is it? Oh yeah, I forgot about this, because that's what ends up happening. You see me do that, you pull me over. What's the penalty associated with this?
It's a Class C misdemeanor, and I believe the penalty is up to a $100 fine for the first offense.
And then repeated offenses, you have the possibility of, I guess, like any other repeated offense.
Yeah, it goes up, so then you become a Class B misdemeanor, and I don't know, Lieutenant Chug, do you remember what the...
Yeah, it becomes a Class B misdemeanor if you cause serious injury on a person while you're engaged in such activity.
Right.
And so it's the prior conviction is if you do that within 3 years. So if we stop you and you've been cited within the last 3 years, then it becomes a Class B.
Okay. So really, and the whole point of this whole thing is not to put more rules on anybody, but simply, obviously, as cell phones and mobile devices have gotten smaller and more prolific, well, the dangers involved with them have resulted in real lives being lost.
We just need to recognize that what's happening on your cell phone isn't as important as the lives that you're risking around you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, May 13th.
May 13th.
May 13th. Stop using that thing. Just drive. Pull over. Like we used to have to do when we had to go to a payphone. You want to talk to somebody, you got to pull over, get out of the vehicle, put your 10 cents in. I'm kind of dating myself. I might not look like I'm that old, but I remember 10-cent phone calls. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you all for watching today's show. That's all for now. Please join us next time right here on VTV Channel 6. Remember to like us on Facebook for updates on your favorite VTV programming. We'll see you next time.